You let me know when you're ready to go. We're live. All right. Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. And we'll get started with our special council meeting agenda. Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Members of council, members of our staff that are online, members of the public that have joined us here in the chambers of the Township of Clearview. Today's meeting is Wednesday, July 27th, 2022. And this is a special council meeting agenda, which contains public planning meetings. And so they will be happening shortly. So at this time, to get us started, we will approve the agenda. And before I do that, I want to acknowledge that we do have a few members of council not present in the room with us, but we do have Councillor Lamers, who is joining us virtually. And I did receive word that Councillor McKechnie, Councillor Leishman, and Deputy Mayor Burton were unable to actually join us in tonight. So that's why we're a little bit short, but we have everyone here to perform a quorum and be able to conduct the meeting. Item 1 is the approval of the agenda. Recommendation be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby approve the agenda dated July 27, 2022 as presented. Can I have a mover and seconder on that? I'll take Mr. Walker, and I'll second it by Councillor Deneen. Thank you. Members of council, any questions? I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And that carries unanimous. Thank you very much. Council, item 2, disclosure pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Is there any disclosures during this meeting for the items on our agenda? Seeing none, if anything comes up during the meeting, please bring it forward, members of council, and we'll deal with it appropriately at that time. All right, so council, we're now going to move to the public meeting. And as usual procedure for our council, when we meet in the public meeting format underneath the Planning Act, the deputy mayor is often the chair of the meeting. In the absence of the deputy mayor, I've asked Councillor Patterson if he would like to chair this portion of the meeting, and I would be happy that he has agreed. So at this point, I will just release the chair to the Councillor Patterson, and you can conduct the rest of the meeting until the meeting is concluded. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Managers. Again, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us in person and also tuning in by video. We will now initiate the public meeting portion of tonight's agenda. And I will comment that no planning decisions will be made by council tonight. We invite you to comment on the applications being presented tonight and to engage in the process with us. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Corporation of the Township of Clearview on an application being discussed this evening, please let me start that again. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Corporation of the Township of Clearview on an application being discussed this evening, we ask you to please email the member of our planning staff who is presenting the application for each of us, for each of the 4 public meetings tonight. Tonight, the planner is Rosalind Workman, and she's doing all 4 public meetings. Her email address will be provided in each of her presentations. Please be advised that your comment or request to be notified will form part of the public record. Your communication and any personal information therein will be made available to the public unless you expressly request the removal. If a person or public body does not make oral submission at a public meeting or written submission to the township with respect to the proposed application before the decision is made or a bylaw is passed, they are not entitled to appeal the decision of the Ontario Land Tribunal and may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. Each of the 4 following public meetings will involve a brief presentation by our planning staff. That's Rosalind Workman. An opportunity for the applicant or their agent to present their application. And I believe we have a couple tonight. A period for public comments. That's you in the audience, for those present. And an opportunity for councilors to make questions and comments as well. So we'll now begin the public meeting. And before I do that, I'll note again, I think you are aware of this, that Planner Workman is participating in tonight's public meeting via video. You'll see her come on, as well as our township staff standing by for answering questions. And I understand both all the applicants and their agents that are present tonight will be done on video as well. Could I have that confirmed? That's true. So the applicant and their agents are on video as well. So we'll now begin the public meeting with respect to file number 2022-040-ZB, which is the 3 Jonathan Court in Stayner. And if Rosalind, as I'm sure she is standing by, you're on.
Great, thank you, Councillor Patterson. And I'm just going to take a moment to share my presentation for tonight. So bear with me while I share my screen. Can everyone see that? Excuse me. I'll take that as a yes. So tonight we are having a public meeting for zoning bylaw amendment 2022-052 ZB, and it is property 3 Jonathan Court, Stayner. And I will just make a note that at some point, a portion of these lands will become 13 Locke Avenue in Stayner. So this just shows the subject lands, and again, they are outlined in black with gray and black hatching. And as I said, though, the entire lands today are actually municipally known as 3 Jonathan Court. But as we will move on in the presentation, you will see that what is proposed is to actually at some point sever this parcel right here, and there will need to be an address on Locke Avenue, and that will be 13 Locke. Again, these are the subject lands outlined in red, and as mentioned, they are currently today 3 Jonathan Court, but at some point will become 13 Locke Avenue to have address on Locke Avenue. Excuse me. The existing policy framework, currently the Township of Clearview official plan designation for the subject lands is special policy residential, and the current zoning on the property is residential large lot, or RS1. This just outlines the official plan designation mapping for the subject lands, which are in red, and the purple is showing the special policy residential designation mapping. This is the existing zoning bylaw map. So as mentioned, the property is outlined in red and the current zoning is RS1. The proposal is to, the application is proposing to zone the lands from residential large lot RS1 to residential multiple low density exception. So that will be an RS3-17. And the exception 17 represents that the applicant would like to have a smaller lot frontage for the single detached dwellings that will be built on that property, where the current zoning bylaw requires 13.5 meters of frontage. The exception will propose a lot frontage of 12 meters. The subject lands will also be subject to a consent application, which will sever 0.36 acres or 1,457 square meters of a lot, and it will have frontage on Locke Avenue. The parcel of land being zoned residential multiple low density exception 17 may further be divided to make 2 additional lots. And this is where each of the lots will propose to have a frontage of 12 meters. This is just a site plan showing again the subject lands, and the lot is proposed, as I'd mentioned, to be divided firstly into 2 parcels, and then they will then further be subdivided in half at some point. Notice in circulation. Notice of the subject zoning bylaw amendment has been given in accordance with the Planning Act on July the 7th, 2022 by mailing out of notices and posting a sign on the property. Details of this application and supporting materials have been made available to the public and have been circulated to the relevant commenting agencies. This is the circulation map showing all of the properties that were circulated with the mail out, and those are the properties within 120 meters of the subject lands, which is shown in the yellow and red outline. And the yellowish color is the properties that received the mailed out notice. At this time, this would be the time that I would read out any of the comments received on this application. And at this time, I have not received any comments to report. This is the contact information of myself. So should you wish to get in touch with me, you can email me at rworkman, RWORKMAN @clearview.ca, or you can give me a call with my extension being 248. This is just an overview of the review process and where we are right now. So tonight we're at the public meeting stage. Next, after the public meeting, staff will consider comments received, and we will put together a staff recommendation and a report, which will go to council at another council meeting. Council will either approve or deny the application. And after that decision is made, there will be an appeal period. If there is no appeal to this application, then the decision will come into force and effect. And that concludes my presentation. So tonight, I do not believe there is no other planning consultant providing any sort of presentation, but I do see that the owners are online. I don't know if they want to speak, but.
So does the applicant, the owner, wish to make a brief presentation?
Not at this time, thank you.
Was that yes or no? No. Okay, thank
No,
you.
not at this time, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for attending. All right. Would anyone here present like to speak to the application? If so, questions may be directed to or responded to by the applicant, their agent, or the staff, but please address those through the chair. So is there anyone here that would like to make comment or ask a question? You're all looking eager for something else. Once again, anyone? All right, I'll say a third time, but I can see there's no one. So does a member of council have any questions, comments? Do I see any? John Lamers, are you in earshot there? Any questions? So I take that as a no or a yes.
Yeah, trying to turn mine on my speaker. Just on page 9, Roslyn, we're severing off lot 13 on Lock Avenue. Later, there's going to come as another severance to split that in two.
Thank you, Councillor Lamers, and through the chair. So tonight we're just looking at the zoning application to change the land uses on the property. The Committee of Adjustment will at some point consider possibly two applications. So one would be to sever the initial lot, and then if the applicants or owners wish, they can also then apply for another application to further divide that lot. That will have, so there will be two entrances onto Lock Avenue.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Okay, anyone else on council? So just a reminder to council, you'll remember that we had a similar application back in June.
Yeah.
Okay, so. All right, So this concludes the public meeting with respect to file number 2022-040-ZB for this evening's agenda. We thank you for attending and providing any comments. A report regarding this proposal will be prepared for council, who will make a decision concerning this matter at a future meeting. I should mention that all input, and this pertains to future public meetings we're going to have in the evening, will always be received and regarded fully by staff and the recommendations and by council. It's an important part of the process for us. So again, thank you. We'll now proceed to the next public meeting, which will essentially follow the same process. And so the second public meeting will be with respect to file number 2022-041-ZB. This is 6042 3031 Side Road and 8077 Highway 26. So Rosalind, are you prepared now to start with the brief presentation?
Yes, I am. Thank you. Just give me a second and I'll share my screen. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. And so tonight we're here for public meeting zoning bylaw amendment, and the file number is 2022-044-ZB, and it's on subject lands 6042 3031 Side Road and 8077 Highway 26. The subject lands are outlined in black and they are gray and black hatched. And you can see that they front onto Highway 26. And also there is a township road, the 3031 Side Road. The subject lands, again, are outlined in red here, and the top one is the 6042 3031 Side Road, and the bottom or the southern property is 8077 Highway 26. The current Township of Clearview official plan designation is agricultural and Greenlands hazard land area. And the current zoning bylaw categories on the property are agricultural AG, agricultural residential use exception, so AGER-7, and environmental protection EP. This is an official plan mapping showing the subject lands outlined in red. And the white area is showing agricultural, and that blue line is what's called the Greenland hazard land area. This is the existing zoning bylaw map. Again, the subject lands are outlined in red. And in total, the two lands are zoned agricultural AG, environmental protection EP, agricultural residential exception, which is AGER-7, and the 7 recognizes a minimum lot area of this land as 30.8 hectares and a minimum lot frontage of 90 meters on Highway 26. And then this little smaller map just shows the overlay for the hazard land overlay for the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority fill regulated area. So that's that light blue area shown. The proposal. This application proposes to zone a portion of the 6042 3031 Side Road from agricultural AG to agricultural residential use exception, AGER, and agricultural exception AG-25. The farmhouse and the accessory structures will be zoned AG-25, and the farmland will be zoned AGER. The exception 25 will recognize that the total gross floor area of the accessory buildings where the bylaw permits 200 square meters in total gross floor area is proposed to permit 721 square meters in total gross floor area. The AGER will zone the farmland to no longer permit residential uses. So in that case, the AGER is stated as being an agricultural residential use exception, and it would prohibit any single detached dwellings, farm help accommodations, any accessory apartments, garden suites, or accessory bed and breakfasts, home occupations, or home industries. The lands known as 6042, 3031 have the farmhouse declared surplus, and the farmland will be consolidated with the property located at 8077 Highway 26. The farmhouse will be severed through a proposed consent application. This little site plan hopefully will help to explain a little clearly what is happening tonight and into the future. So the subject lands are 6042, 3031. And this is what is subject to the farm consolidation. The surrounding lands will be zoned agricultural residential use exception, which means that these lands will be continued to be farmed, but they will lose their right to have any sort of residential building on them. The lands that are in this little box, which contain a house, a barn, and some sheds and garages, will be severed off at some point in the future, and they will be zoned agricultural exception AG 25, and that's because they need to be, we need to recognize the additional square footage for the accessory buildings. When the consent is considered, these lands, the 38 hectares left over, will be amalgamated with surrounding farmland because the Dunlogan Farms, which is the farmer farming the lands, is wishing to expand his farming operations. Notice and circulation. Notice of the subject zoning bylaw amendment has been given in accordance with the Planning Act on July the 7th, 2022 by mailing out of notices and posting a sign on the property. Details of this application and supporting materials have been made available to the public and have been circulated to the relevant commenting agencies. This is a map showing the properties that were subject to the notice and subject to the 120 meters of getting the mail out notice. So those are the lands in orange around the subject lands, which are in the middle. At this point, this was where I would read out comments received. I don't have any specific comments to report, but I will make note that we've had a number of calls from the surrounding lands, namely the lands to the north, and mostly it's trying to get clarification on what is happening tonight with the farm consolidation. And I believe many maybe have attended tonight. And so hopefully the public meeting has helped to explain a little bit more what is happening on these lands. Again, my contact information is here, should you wish to get in touch with me after the meeting. And just a little bit of an explanation of where we are in terms of the process. So tonight we're at the public meeting stage. Staff will continue to consider comments that have been received, and staff will recommend write a recommendation report to council. Council will either approve or deny the application, and then there will be an appeal period. If there is no appeal, then the decision will come into force and effect. And that concludes my presentation. Tonight there is a planning consultant, Christine Loft, who is also going to make a presentation.
Thank you, Rosalind. I understand that Christine Loft from Loft Consulting is here to present. Does the applicant wish to say anything before that?
Yes, please. Good evening. My name is Christine Loft, and I'm acting on behalf of the landowner, Mr. and Mrs. Tosh, as well as Dunlogan Farms, who are purchasing the property. And I do have a short PowerPoint that I would like to present. And you'll just have to let me know if I need to share my screen or if that's done by the clerk's office.
Brenda, do we have,
You'll have to share your screen.
Okay,
yeah,
Thank you.
did you hear that? Share the screen?
sounds good. Just give me a moment. Okay, thank you. You can see that? Sorry, can you just confirm that you can see the screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Thank you, thank you. So the property is 60423031 Side Road. This is a zoning bylaw amendment. The property has a lot area of 40 hectares. It has lot frontage of 288 meters onto Highway 26 and approximately 1,290 meters onto concession 3031 Side Road. The lands are primarily agricultural lands. There is a small portion of woodlands associated with the water course that traverses the property. There is an existing residence that is well under construction at this point. And as Ms. Workman has pointed out, there are accessory buildings, the barn, as well as some sheds and a garage that are located in close proximity to the residence. The surrounding lands are primarily agricultural uses as well as woodlands to the southwest. So the proposed amendment, the lands are currently zoned agriculture AG and environmental protection EP, as well as a floodplain overlay. The proposal is to implement a future consent by rezoning the retained lands to agriculture residential use with an exception. The zoning bylaw has the AGER zone, and that exception would preclude any future residential use on the retained lands. The effect of the application would be to facilitate a future severance of a surplus dwelling from the subject lands. We did complete MDS to the barn, the horse barn, which is on the east side of Highway 26. I have circled it in red, and that circle does represent the MDS arc that would be associated with that horse barn. I have used the same sketch as Ms. Workman. I did rotate it so north was up on the plan. So a future consent would be heard by the Committee of Adjustment, and it would be to sever a 1 hectare surplus farm lot with a frontage of 100 meters, and that would be on the 3031 Side Road, and to include the existing residence, which is under construction, as well as all of the accessory buildings, which are all in close proximity to the house and would be all located within that 1 hectare severed lot. And then the consent would retain all of the agricultural lands, which would then be associated with the Dunlogan Farm, lands that are located on the south side of the road. And Dunlogan Farms does currently farm these retained lands. There are policies within each of the policy documents that do speak to surplus farm lots. A planning justification report was submitted with the zoning application, and we did highlight the pertinent sections within provincial policy, within the county plan, and then within the township of Clearview OP. I won't go through them, but I have just highlighted what each of those sections are within each of the policy documents. And just in conclusion, the zoning bylaw amendment is consistent with PPS based on the surplus farm lot policies, conforms to the growth plan, conforms to the county plan, as well as the Township of Clearview official plan, and the proposed application as amended does comply with the Township of Clearview zoning bylaw. And that is my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And I believe Mr. Dunlop is also on the line if there were any questions that I'm unable to answer. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Christine. Who was the gentleman you just mentioned online?
Sorry, I believe Brian Dunlop's on the call as well.
Okay. All right. So if you would just stay with us, there may be some questions directed towards you or the applicant. So is there, would anyone here present like to speak to the application? And again, questions may be directed to or responded to by the applicant, their agent, and staff. and just out of courtesy, direct it through to the chair. So anyone, did I hear, did I see a hat go up? Could you
If you
come to
could
the
just
mic?
come right up to the microphone right over here. That's right here in the middle of the room. We'll make that comfortable for you. Just step forward, keep going over there, right there, the microphone. That one there. Yeah. That one right there is a camera, actually. That's what's helping us do the Zoom meeting.
I
today.
was asking if you already approved these applicants.
I'm sorry?
Did you already approve this?
This has not been approved, and as I said at the beginning of the meeting, council will not be making any planning decisions tonight. This is strictly to receive comments from yourself and for you to receive the information that's pertinent to the application.
No, I don't understand. These people get their way, and people that are waited already 55 years and no action.
Could you give me the context of your question? Are you talking about a specific piece of land?
No, I'm saying people, they have their lots over there for 55 years and it doesn't seem to develop that land.
May I suggest that you're talking about the Shell property? Yes, okay. This is not a matter to be discussed here. However, there are staff members standing by if they wish to provide some basic information to try to answer your question. I believe Mike Ron, General Manager, Environmental Services, is available.
Catherine or Rosalind working, of course, too.
And through your chair, if you don't mind, just for the record, sir, would we be able to get your name and address, please?
Okay.
Can we have your name and address, please, sir?
It's Manuel Martins, 262 Manchester Road, Kitchener, Ontario.
Okay. And I believe there's a yellow form. You can fill that out.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You know what I think? I think if nobody owned that land like they do, that a developer already would go in there and sell the lots for, develop the land and sell the lots for 100, 200,000. The way they have it now, I don't think this is ever going to happen.
Sir, I suggest that you're going to get very limited answers tonight because that's not the subject. Although I think we probably could give you some basic information as to how to ask your questions to our staff, our planning staff, and it might give you some indication on what's happening with that land.
I thought you asked me if I had any questions, so I'm asking.
Well, it does pertain to this specific piece of
All right.
property. That's why.
Thank you.
Right. But please pursue your question through either one of our planners. Planner Workman can help you direct your questions. Anyone else wishing to bring a question forward?
Sorry, I think what he was trying to get about was any changes with the current proposed property. Will it have any effect on the Shell property in regards to the landowners that are there? If
Right.
any changes come about with those parcel of property, will it directly affect those and us that are in that parcel of property?
I understood that was his general concern, and it's good to hear that there is interest in that, but not from this forum tonight. But there is an avenue that you can pursue. All right.
Through worship, if we can get the gentleman's name and address, please, for the record. And if you can just speak up into the mic, if you don't mind.
Sorry,
Thank you.
my name is Calvin Woolsey. I'm at 263 Johnson Street in Barrie. I have a piece of property at the Shell property as well.
Thank you. Anyone else? If you have the same question, raise your hand, just so we understand the interest here. Okay, thank you. All right, members of council. Rosalind, do you have a question, comment? Rosalind, were you wanting to say something?
No, I wasn't.
Okay,
Sorry.
that's okay.
I mean, as I said, I'm happy to answer those questions. People can contact me directly by calling me or emailing, and I'm happy to explain a little bit more.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Members of council? No? Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just like a clarity from either Ms. Workman or from Ms. Loft, who represents the proponent here. Just a clarity, these lands are being proposed for agricultural uses exclusively, and there's no further proposals other than agricultural uses that they're looking towards, other than the future severance of the buildings that would remain as the severance. Madam or Ms. Workman, can you just confirm that there's no future uses on this land other than agricultural at this time?
Thank you, Mayor Measures, and through Councillor Patterson. Yes, you are correct. The application is to, it will only permit agricultural uses.
Thank you very much. Just for clarity, that's good.
Okay, thank you. And before we leave this submission, just for the record, I believe the correct zoning amendment number is 2022-44-ZB. My script had it in as, and as I announced it, 4-1. Correct, Rosalind?
Yes, thank you. Councillor
And might as well cover at the same time. And there's also a correction for this one coming up now as well.
Yes, I think what's happened is there was two file numbers, and they've just yeah, one's a CS number and one's a zoning file number. So you're correct.
Okay, you're on the right side. You're right. I was wrong. What we read. So just wanted to make that sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. So this concludes the public meeting with respect to file number 022-044-ZB at 6042 3031 Side Road and 8077 Highway 26. We thank all of you who have participated and those who had questions. All input received with regard to this proposal will be fully considered by staff in their recommendation and by council in their decision with respect to the application. A report regarding this proposal will be prepared for council, who will make a decision concerning this matter at a future meeting. And this concludes the second public meeting of this evening. And I would now like to move to the third public meeting with respect to file 2022. Rosalind, give me the right number.
Sorry, so that will be 2022-047
Right.
ZB.
Thank you very much. 7662 Highway 26. And Rosalind will now start with a brief presentation.
Thank you. And I'm just going to take a minute to share my screen. So tonight we're here for a third public meeting regarding a zoning bylaw amendment and a red line revision for a draft plan of subdivision. And those are files 2022-047 ZB and 2016-026 SD. And it's on lands known as 7662 Highway 26 in Stayner. This is the subject lands are outlined in black with gray hatch, and that is known as 7662 Highway 26 Stayner. It's also known as Pacific Homes or Emerald Creek Estates. These are the subject lands outlined in red. Existing policy framework. So the current township official plan designation is residential. There's commercial and greenland hazard land area. The current zoning bylaw categories are general commercial exception holds, so C1-6, H14, and residential multiple low density hold, RS3, H14, and residential multiple low density exception hold, so RS3-914 and RS3-814, H14, Residential medium density exception hold, RS4-5 H14 and RS4-6 H14, and recreational lands, REC, stormwater management facilities, SM, and environmental protection, EP. This is the official plan designation, so it shows the commercial lands in red, residential in yellow, and the blue is the Greenland hazard land. This is the zoning bylaw map, again, a little bit complicated, but as it is a draft plan approved piece of land, there are zones for each of the different areas. Again, stormwater management, recreational, environmental protection zones, and then residential multiple low density hold. And then anyway, I won't go through them all, but the proposal tonight is to amend a portion of the property from residential multiple low density hold, or RS3 H14, and residential low density exception hold, RS3 8 H14, residential medium density exception hold, RS4 5 H14, and residential medium density exception hold, RS4 6 H4, and all those particular zones are going to actually be zoned to environmental protection, EP, and residential multiple low density exception hold, RS3 H14. The effect of this application is that it's going to recognize the habitat of a species at risk on the lands, and it will be zoning those lands environmental protection, or EP. And this will facilitate a red line revision, which is also being applied for, but will not be considered tonight at this public meeting for the zoning. But it is a red line revision to the current draft plan of subdivision. The subject lands will also, as I mentioned, subject to a draft plan extension and a red line revision. Currently, the lapse date on the draft plan is March 19th, 2023. But as we have to do a red line revision, we will be considering that application at another time at a different council meeting. The finalization of this plan of subdivision has been delayed somewhat over the last several years due to addressing of this species at risk, which is a bat that has been found on the property. The mitigation measures to maintain the bat habitat has resulted in the proposed revisions to reduce the lots on the current draft plan of subdivision, as well as the subsequent need to zone the lands to environmental protection. So in this case, the proposed revisions include a reduction of the number of lots on the draft plan from 198 units to 177 units. It also includes that block 72, which was proposed a 19-unit medium density block, has been changed to an environmental protection zone, and that lots 49 and block 63 have also been changed from 7 lots to providing 5 single detached lots. And that lots 29 and 30 at their rear lot lines have been changed. The rear yards have now been reduced, and the area behind those lots has been zoned environmental protection, or EP zone. This is just showing where the red line revisions and where the zoning changes will occur. This is showing the draft plan of subdivision currently. So Highway 26 is here. And there is a bit of a creek that runs through this property. This is one area in behind these residential single lots where the lands will be zoned environmental protection. This is another area in blue here where a medium density block is actually being zoned to EP. And then the red area shows the change from the 7 lots to the 5 singles. And that these lands will be zoned RS3 hold H14. And so then this just shows how the plan will be presented in the future. So again, these lots no longer go to the river. This is now not showing any units, and these areas are showing 5 lots. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Notice in circulation. Notice of the subject zoning bylaw amendment has been given in accordance with the Planning Act on July the 7th of 2022, and that has been done through mailing and posting a sign on the subject lands. Details of this application and supporting materials have been made available to the public and have been circulated to the relevant commenting agencies. This is the circulation map for where the mailouts have gone. And again, the subject lands are shown in red outline here, and the yellowish orange are the lands that received a mailout. Again, at this time, I have no public comments to be read and nothing to report in that case.
Thank you, Rosalind.
And yep, just contact information, and we'll just get to, again, the review process for the zoning bylaw section of this. We're here at the public meeting. Staff will continue to consider comments. There will be a staff recommendation and report, which is presented to council. Council will either deny or approve the application. There will be an appeal period, and if no appeal period, then the decision will come into force and effect. And that concludes my presentation. I do believe there's a planning consultant as well here to Brandy Clement to present on behalf of the owner.
Yes, did I understand Christine Loft's she was going to be addressing both files?
I believe that is the final file that Christine.
The final file. Okay. All right. So is Brandy there?
She is.
Okay. Thank you. Brandy, welcome.
Good evening.
Good
I
evening.
have a short presentation as well. I believe Ms. Corbett offered to share that for me if she's still able to do so. I can, if you guys, everybody can hear me, right?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Okay, great.
I think Ms. Corbett's working on trying to find the file for you.
Okay, thank you.
There we go.
Okay, thank you so much. My sometimes my internet gets a little glitchy, so I thought it might be best if she was able to. So thank you. So good evening. My name is Brandy Clement, and I am a planner with the Jones Consulting Group. I am here on behalf of my client this evening regarding the applications we've submitted for the Emerald Creek subdivision. With me this evening is also the project engineer, Duncan Richardson, and we're here to answer any questions that there may be following the presentation. Next slide, please. Okay, so on to the next slide, if we could, please. Thank you. So the subject lands are located within the settlement boundary of Stainer. They are approximately 17.5 hectares in size. They have frontage on Highway 26, which is approximately 155 meters. And there's a small area to the south on Birchwood Boulevard with frontage. And that roadway will and is proposed to extend into the site when the lands do develop. Currently, the lands are vacant. They have been used over the years as pasture land, and they are a draft plan approved subdivision. You can see the surrounding land uses. There's the Stainer Cemetery to the west. We have a veterinary clinic to the west as well, agricultural lands to the north, the sewage lagoons to the east, and both residential and future residential to the south. The next slide, please. So a bit of a background on this file. This site has been draft plan approved since approximately 2004. There have been 3 subsequent extensions given since that time. We were most recently in front of council in 2018. That was for a red line revision as a result of requests from the Ministry of Transportation. So Highway 26 on the west side of the lands being in the jurisdiction of MTO. They asked that we move the driveway that we were proposing into the site further south on the lands, as well as some road improvements along that frontage of Highway 26, additional road widening, a larger daylight triangle. So that also changed the configuration of the roadway into the site slightly. And as a result, we were in front of council for a red line revision at that time. And also we had our draft plan approval extended to March of 2023 at that time as well. So since this time, over the past several years, our client has been working with the project environmental consultants to address a species at risk habitat on the lands. So we've been working with what was the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry originally, and now the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks. There are bat species that utilize the lands, and more particularly the environmental swath that runs north-south and traverses the property. We were discussing extensively the development as it had been draft plan approved for many years with the MECP. And there was a time where they were requesting that the entire east side of the property not be developed at all to allow for that to remain as bat habitat. In doing further and extensive field work through our environmental consultants and along with the MECP, it has been decided by the MECP that they will allow for, as long as there's some revisions to the plan, which is why we're here this evening, as long as we do these revisions, they will allow for the development along the east side of the property. So as a result, it has required this submission that we've made to the municipality for the red line revision, which then has subsequently led to meeting the zoning bylaw amendment as well. So the next application, please. So there are, the next slide. There are two applications that we have submitted, and that being the red line revision, as I mentioned, I'll discuss it a little bit in detail on the next slide. And then we have the zoning bylaw amendment application that will zone the lands that are, as a result of the red line revision, to the different zones that have been identified. So the next slide, please. This just gives you a blow up of the red line that we're doing to the plan, and Ms. Workman explained it very well, but just to overview it again, it's pretty much concentrated to the center of the property. There is a large swath of environmental protection land that runs north to south, traverses the property almost in the middle of the lands. There, if you look at the block that we have down on the south end in green, this was approved to be a medium density block, and that would house up to approximately 19 units. This is an area that the MECP has requested become part of the environmental protection lands. As a result, directly adjacent off Birchwood Boulevard, we had an entrance into the medium density block. So this has gone away. There was also on both sides of that, there was a semi-detached block as well as a townhouse block on the other side. We've also taken out those, and the area that you see in orange are now proposed to be single detached lots. So there is a swath of lots along that area. There were once 16 units, and there's now proposed to be 14 units. So overall, there's a reduction of 21 units. On the plan, approved was 198 units, and we're now proposing 177 units. And then the last change being on the west side of the environmental protection block, the lands in yellow. These lands had larger backyards to them. And in discussions with the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority, there is a pond that's located to the south. You can sort of see on the drawing that's within the EP lands. And they had requested that this area have a little bit more of a buffer between the rear of the lots and where the pond would start. And so we have just reduced the size of those lots as well. So what it's resulted in is a much larger environmental protection block on the property. The original block was approved at 3.48 hectares, and we are now proposing it to be 4.06 hectares. So that's an increase of approximately 0.6 hectares or 1.4 acres in property that will be now environmental protection lands. The next slide, please. So just briefly, the changes that we're proposing to the plan will continue to be consistent with the provincial policy statement and are in conformity with the Place to Grow growth plan of the Greater Golden Horseshoe. Next slide, please. As mentioned, the lands are currently designated a residential, commercial, and greenland hazard land. Next slide, please. There's no changes to that we're proposing. This is the mix of zones that currently are on the property. And I won't go through that in detail as Ms. Workman did. And the next slide, please. This is the sort of more simplified zoning schedule that we've submitted. And what it shows is the 2 areas that will become part of the EP block will be zoned to be environmental protection. And then the lands that I had identified as orange on the previous drawing will be zoned to the residential multiple low density hold, or RS3H-14 zone, to recognize the single detached lots that we're proposing in that area. And the last slide, please. So in conclusion, the applications are related to an approved draft plan of subdivision. They're within the settlement boundary of Stainer. The applications contribute to the protection of a habitat of species at risk on the property. The proposal conforms with the Places to Grow growth plan, is consistent with provincial policy statement. It is also in conformity with the township's official plan. And in my opinion, the applications represent good planning. Thank you so much.
Does the applicant wish to make a presentation, or at least make comment?
Sorry, I'm here this evening for the applicant, so they are not.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. Let the record show that there was no one present during this, this portion of our agenda in the public meeting for this application. There were no comments. I would like, given that, to restate what was said at the very beginning for those that are listening by video, that if a person or a public body does not make oral submission at a public meeting, which is tonight, or a written submission to the township with respect to the proposed applications before a decision is made or a bylaw is passed, they are not entitled to appeal the decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal and may not be added to as a party to the hearing of an appeal unless, in the opinion of the board, the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. So those, if you're listening in and have comments, please submit if you wish to be notified of the decision in respect to any possible appeals. So that moves me to my colleagues. Any members of council have any comments? None? All right, thank you. So this concludes the public meeting with respect to file number 20. I wrote it down here. 2047, thank you. ZB 6042 3031 Side Road and 8077 Highway 26. In this evening's agenda, we thank all those who attended and provided comments for their interest in this matter. All inputs received with regard to the proposal will be fully considered by staff in the recommendation and by council in their decision with respect to this application. A report regarding this proposal will be prepared for council, who will make a decision concerning this matter at a future meeting. So unless Rosalind has any comments, this will conclude the third public meeting. Thank you. So we now move to the fourth and final meeting. The fourth and final public meeting on this agenda. And once again, I will ask Rosalind back for the fourth time tonight. and still smiling.
Yes,
To begin,
thank you. Okay, thanks, Councillor Patterson. And I will proceed to share my screen. Tonight, again, fourth public meeting, for this time an official plan amendment and a zoning bylaw amendment, and they are actually files 2022-031 OP and 2022-031 ZB, and they are on or are being applied to 1996 Concession 6 North, Nottawasaga, in the township of Clearview. The subject lands, as I've mentioned, are in the past are outlined here in black with gray and black hatching, and they are known as 1996 Concession 6 North, Nottawasaga, in the township of Clearview. The existing policy framework. So the current township official plan designation is agricultural. There's also a Greenland natural heritage and Greenland hazard land on the properties, and the property is zoned agricultural AG, environmental protection EP, and hazard land overlay FP. This is the official plan mapping. So the subject lands are outlined in red. The white depicts the agricultural designation. The blue is the Greenland hazard land, and the green is the Greenland natural heritage. Current zoning shows the lands outlined in red. So agricultural is the AG zone, and then there's the environmental protection EP. This is the existing hazard land overlay in the light blue. And of course, this depicts where the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation fill regulated areas are. And the proposal is that the subject property, which is 79 hectares in size and contains a single detached dwelling. And there are two applications being considered tonight at this public meeting. One is a site-specific official plan amendment application, and one is a zoning bylaw application. In addition, the township has also received a consent application, but is not being processed currently, as the proposed official plan amendment must be considered first to set the policy framework. With regards to the official plan amendment proposal, the current owner of the land would like to sever the existing single detached dwelling from the subject property, and the policies permit farm consolidations within the township when they include severing a surplus farmhouse from the farmland, and when the farmer owns the farmland abutting the subject land or across the road from the subject lands, which is, of course, the requirements of the current official plan policies. In this case, the owner does not currently own land abutting or across the road from the subject lands, and therefore this is why they have applied for a site-specific official plan amendment. This shows the subject lands, and outlined in blue would be the severance or the proposed surplus farm dwelling. Further, with the official plan amendment, the owner, just to give you a little background, is an active farmer in Clearview. The owner does own approximately 173 hectares or 427 acres of farmland in Clearview, which includes the subject lands. And the additional lands that he owns are also located on Concession 6 North and on the 27-28 side. And this drawing shows the subject lands in red. And as mentioned, those are approximately 79 hectares or 195 acres. And then the blue outlines the location of the other farmlands that are currently owned by this farmer. And they are approximately 94 hectares or 232 acres. So specifically then, the site-specific official plan amendment proposes to change section 9.4.2 agricultural consents for farm consolidations in the official plan. And that section states that a consent may be granted to dispose of a farmhouse which is rendered surplus through the consolidation and merging of two abutting farm holdings or farm holdings adjacent to one another but separated by a public road, provided that this separation distance between the farmhouse and any livestock operations complies with the minimum distance separation formula 1 or 2. So the proposal will deem the existing single detached dwelling to be surplus to the existing farm operation, even though the subject lands are not abutting or across the road to other lands in the same ownership as the current owners. This proposal would be a change to the way that the township has considered farm amalgamations and surplus dwellings. However, it is a site-specific official plan amendment. Just to explain a little bit on how official plan amendments work, the County of Simcoe is actually the approval authority for lower tier municipal official plan amendments, and the Township of Clearview is a lower tier to their upper tier County of Simcoe. What has to happen at our level is that official plan amendments first must be adopted by our local township council before being forwarded to the County of Simcoe for consideration. The other application that we're considering concurrently with the official plan application is a zoning bylaw amendment. And the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, should the official plan be approved, would come into effect after the official plan adoption or approval by the County of Simcoe. In this case, the proposed zoning bylaw would zone the farmland agricultural residential use exception, AGER, and this would prohibit any residential uses, including single detached dwellings, farm help accommodation, an accessory apartment, garden suites, an accessory bed and breakfast, home industry, and home occupations. The proposed zoning bylaw will also consider an exception to the agricultural AG zone to permit a residential lot to be called a surplus lot, dwelling lot. In this case, the blue outline shows the location of the single detached dwelling on the subject property, and the red is the farmland. So this would be considered the surplus farm lot. And then this is just a sketch that's been provided by the owner and the consultant, showing the proposed severed lot, which would be 0.6 hectares, and the retained will be 78.7 hectares, and the severed will have 30 meters of frontage. Again, just an aerial showing the surplus farmhouse. Notice in circulation, notice of the subject official plan and zoning bylaw amendment has been given in accordance with the Planning Act on July the 7th, 2022 by mail out and posting a sign on the property. Details of the application and supporting materials have been made available to the public and have been circulated to the relevant commenting agencies. Circulation for this application has been given to all the properties within 120 meters of the subject lands. Subject lands are shown in this map under the red outline, and the mail-outs have been given to those lands that are in an orangey color there on the map. In terms of public comments, as of tonight, we have not received any to report to council. This is my contact information, should you wish to make any comments. And then in terms of the process, we are still at the public meeting stage. Staff will obviously still receive comments, and we will write a recommendation report to the Township Council. Council will either adopt or deny the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment, and notice of council's decision will be mailed out. However, the decision of council will also be mailed to the County of Simcoe, and the decision of the county will be then considered and mailed out. If the decision of the County of Simcoe or the Township of Clearview is not appealed, it will come into effect. The official plan will come into effect, and then the zoning bylaw will then follow as well. That does conclude my presentation. And tonight, Christine Loft is also here of Loft Planning, representing the owner.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Rosalind. All right, Christine, I understand you're representing the applicant and you have a presentation.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I have the sun in my eyes. I would just thank you through the chair, Christine Loft, acting on behalf of the landowner, Morfett Farms. I do have a short PowerPoint to share.
Okay, and the same thing with, I think, as previous. You're able to share it? Yep.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so the property is 1996 Concession 6 and 7181 3334 Side Road. This is an aerial view of the property, and as Ms. Workman pointed out, there are two addresses on the property. They were formerly two lots, which have now merged into one parcel. The property has a lot area of 79 hectares, has frontage of 560 meters on Concession 6 and 1,145 meters onto 3334 in Ottawa Side Road. The parcel is primarily agricultural lands. There is a small portion of woodlands associated with the water course, which traverses the property. There is an existing residence on the property and a small amount of landscaped area that is surrounding the house, yard, and the laneway. The surrounding lands are primarily agricultural as well as woodlands. The airport is on the east side of the road, and other associated uses to the east, as well as the golf course to the west, which you can see on the aerial. So the proposed official plan amendment then would redesignate from agriculture, Greenlands Natural Heritage, and Greenlands Hazard in the Township of Clearview official plan, and would redesignate to a site-specific agricultural designation. And this would be relate to section 9.4.2, which would permit a farm consolidation where the applicant does not own the adjacent lands. And the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, the lands are currently zoned agricultural AG and environmental EP with a floodplain overlay. And the proposed amendment would implement a future consent by rezoning the retained lands to agriculture residential use exception, which is the municipality's AGER zone. And that zone precludes any future residential use on the retained lands. And the effect of the application then would facilitate a future severance of the surplus dwelling from the subject lands. And so this is a consent sketch, which would be a future consent application that the Committee of Adjustment would hear. The proposal would be to sever a 0.6 hectare surplus farm lot with a frontage of 30 meters onto Concession Road 6 with an existing residential use. And as noted, the frontage requirement is 30 meters, and that would be met. And then the severed lands would be tapered in to avoid agricultural lands and follow the laneway into the existing residence. And the retained parcel would be the agricultural lot. It would have a lot area of just over 78 hectares with a continued frontage of 530 meters onto Concession 6 and 1,145 meters onto 3334 Side Road. With respect to the policy framework, a planning justification report was provided with the submission and speaks to section 341C of the provincial policy statement, section 367, subsection C of the county official plan, which speaks to surplus farm lots, and then section 942 of the Township of Clearview's official plan. And the mapping identified on the right-hand side of the screen does identify the other lands owned by the applicant, as Ms. Workman has pointed out. There has been a recent staff report that Council has heard, which relates to additional tests under that 942. And in our opinion, this application would meet those tests, which relates to other farmlands owned by the same entity located within 2 years, a minimum of 5 years of ownership, restriction on the retained lands, and that the retained lands, vacant farmland is large enough to function as a farm unit and have a minimum lot area of 35 hectares, that the surplus farm lot be a maximum of 1 hectares, and that there be consideration of existing associated agricultural buildings and accessory buildings. So in our opinion, each of those general additional tests would be met. And in conclusion, it's our opinion that the application is in keeping with the Planning Act, is consistent with provincial policy, conforms to the growth plan, the County of Simcoe plan, as well as the Township of Clearview official plan, and the proposed application as amended would comply with the Township of Clearview zoning bylaw amendment. And those are my comments. Thank you.
There's mentioning again for those who may
Could you turn your mic on?
I'm sorry, I'll say that again. It's for the public record, let it show that there is no members present tonight to make comment directly. For those tuning in by video, if they wish to make comment, I will repeat the instructions that we have for procedure for these public meetings, that if a person or public body does not make oral submission at a public meeting or written submission to the township with respect to the proposed applications before a decision is made or a bylaw is passed, they are not entitled to appeal the decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal and may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal unless, in the opinion of the board, there are reasonable grounds to do so. So I will then move to comments from my esteemed colleagues on council. I would, I think council is aware, and just for the public to note as well, that back in June, I'm sorry, did you ask for a question? Well, you have to waive that thing. I'm just sitting beside you. Sorry, Councilor Dinian.
Thank you. Through the chair, Councillor Patterson, to Rosalind, please. When I'm looking at the property, and these are just questions, I'm just curious. There were already 2 severances on the property off the 33-34 side road, and there was also one off the other property. Now the 2 are amalgamated. Sorry. And so would this be considered a second severance off the first, or is it all one now? And I have other questions. So there's already 2 off the one side road, and that would make 2 off the other piece of property. My next question would be, what zoning is the lot going to be when it's done? And what the current rules are for frontage for a rural lot? Is it 100 feet that we're going to have the 30 meters? Questions?
Okay, is that it? Can I shoot for the first one then?
Yes, please.
Okay, so thanks for that through the chair. In terms of I think what you're referring to is the official plan policies under kind of, I think it's even the rural designation that states that you can't have more than 2 residential lots taken off within a certain time frame. And I think that's within, I'd have to go back to the policies, but it's actually more relating to the rural designations, I believe. And in this case, if you remember the past histories, there has been allowances for farm retirement lots and so on. There hasn't been as much restriction until 2001 when the township actually enacted this farm consolidation policy. So I don't know that there's much of a consideration to taking a second lot off of this. Like, it is considered all of one. So you're correct, there would be 4 lots that will in the end potentially be taken off of this larger parcel. But I don't believe that's a policy framework that we would have to consider in the official plan amendment. But should we need to, we could also consider that in the official plan policies.
Okay,
Does that help with the first question?
it does. And the zoning for the severed lot, the residual lot.
Right. So when we look at our zoning bylaw, we actually look at, because we do allow for farm consolidation, similar to the property that we did look at tonight on the second application for the public meeting. We do have provisions for surplus farmhouse or for surplus farmhouses to be severed off. And those provisions actually allow for 30 meters, and they do allow for a minimum lot area of 0.3 hectares. So in this case, that zoning on these lands would comply with the current surplus farm dwelling. But as I mentioned, it may be that we would have to actually zone the lands to say that they are a surplus dwelling, because again, they're not really meeting those policy frameworks that we had established. So that are currently there. So we would, we're currently working on an official plan amendment, but we may also have to look at the zoning bylaw and allow this to also be considered a surplus farm dwelling to fall into those provisions, if I've explained it.
You have, thank you.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, there's a lot of hoops yet to jump through. Yeah, that's what I was wondering about that. It isn't quite as easy as it looks. Thank you, Rosalind. Thank you.
All right, any other councillor? All right, I would draw attention to the work that the planners did back in June under the title of OPA 22. There's an extensive report and analysis, and also from Guelph. And I guess anyone still on the line, the public, if they're interested in the decision the council will have to be made, it's an excellent primer to the decision that we're going to be making in the future on these. So draw your attention to that. With that, if there are no other matters, I'm looking at Rosalind, who has just dominated the evening tonight. We're done. All right. So this concludes this public meeting and our agenda with this public meeting with respect to file 2022-043.ZB 1996 Concession 6 North Nottawasaga. We thank all of those who participated and provided comments in the interest of this matter. All matters received with regard to this proposal will be fully considered by staff in their recommendations and by council in their decision with respect to this application. A report regarding this proposal will be prepared for council, who will make a decision concerning this matter at a future date. And with that, this concludes the public meeting portion of this agenda, and I resign my chair back to the mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Patterson. Good job on the chairing of this committee. If I may, I'd like to just ask the clerk and Rosalind if they could please make sure that the minutes of this meeting show the corrections that were highlighted by the chair. A little bit of mix up in numbers there. We want to make sure that they're accurate as we prepare our minutes, correct?
Through chair, yes, and I apologize for that.
No apologies necessary, because we understand
Sure, that's
we get
correct.
busy. but I just want to make sure for the minutes that it is corrected. Thank you very much for that. All right, members of council, I have item number 4 on our special council agenda is the bylaw to confirm the proceedings of our council meeting. So be it resolved that bylaw number 22-62, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the July 27, 2022 council meeting, be presented and read a first, second, and third time finally passed on the 27th day of July 2022. Can I call for Councillor Broderick to move it? Can I call for Councillor Lamers to second it? Mr. Lamers? Yes, thank you. He's seconding it. Appreciate that. Members of council, any questions on the bylaw? Seeing none, I'll call the bylaw. All those in favor? And that carries unanimous. Thank you very much. I'm going to go to the motion to adjourn. Prior to the motion to adjourn, I have one congratulatory message to convey on behalf of the Township of Clearview. Our neighbor, the town of Collingwood, has a new mayor. So our congratulations to Mayor Keith Hull, who was sworn in today as the mayor of the town of Collingwood. So I look forward to continuing to work with Mr. Hull, Mayor Hull, as their neighbors to this municipality. So that's congratulatory news to Mr. Hull. At this time, I'll call the motion to adjourn. Recommendation be it resolved, the council meeting adjourned and it will be 7:56. Is that sufficient? 56? Thank you. Councillor Deneen, seconded by Councillor Walker. All those in favor? And that motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Have an excellent day and an excellent weekend coming up. Bye-bye.